All right. Good morning and good evening. We'll welcome you all to the Forum for World Education Young Leader event. Today's theme is What Future for Education. So first, allow me to brief introduce us. Forum for World Education is a nonprofit world organization. Its mission is to transform education in answer to the skills and knowledge requirements of current and future generations of societies. Our focus is on economic growth, societal progress, and sustainability as we strive for a better education system. Forum aims to provide an opportunity to exchange ideas between leaders across the business, education, and the public policy world, and to create new generations with knowledge, skills, and mindset for changing and rapidly challenging the world. Now let's get started. So today our webinar will go like this. So first of all, let's do a round of introductions for all of our special guests. And after that, we'll go in alphabetical order and give everybody about 10 minutes each to share everyone's thoughts. And today, Dr. Hugh McCormick has also prepared a very special guest lecture for us. And finally, we will wrap up the last 10 minutes of the webinar by opening up to questions from our audience today. So let's start with a little introduction from each of our distinguished guests today. So let's start with Alex.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Alex Wing. Great to meet you all for today. I'm currently serving as the Associate of Strategic Investment Department at Cal School of Schools. It is the international division of the US-listed education service company called Bright Scholar. I'm based in Cambridge, right after I graduated from Saïd Business School, University of Oxford. So I assume it's kind of privileged to be able to study and work at the two academic cities in the UK. Prior to that, I attained a Bachelor of Commerce degree at the University of Melbourne, Australia, and co-founded my own education company called ASIS, which provide tutoring and consulting services to all undergrads at the University of Melbourne. Some of other fun facts about me: I used to be a former 400 meters athlete and the entertainment pilot license holder in the US. I used to work at a casino as a blackjack dealer and a front desk attendant for the karaoke bar. So it's very customer service based. And pretty much all about me. Thank you for inviting and having me for today. It greatly appreciated to be connected with many young talents again. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. A nice, amazing journey. And next, Dani, please.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Dani, an FL Young Leader, and I'm based in France, but I'm originally from the United States, if you might be able to tell with my accent. I have an undergraduate bachelor's in international development and political science, and then I have a master's. I did my undergrad at the University of British Columbia, based in Vancouver, Canada, and then I did my master's at the University of Pennsylvania in education, where I focused on the intersections of gender, equity, and technology. So I've worked for international development organizations like UNESCO, UN Women, universities like UC Berkeley, building educational accelerator programs. And now I am a development consultant and technology consultant as the founder of DAB Collab. So the focus of my work is really to use cross-cultural educational pedagogies to help businesses, universities, and tech companies make better decisions. And so I work with a lot of tech companies primarily based in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, where I'm originally from and based. And I try to teach ethical AI, so how we can use humane technology to build the future of education, how we can better use AI as a tool and not a crutch. And I also consult with various accelerators in the region and internationally so that they can build more sustainable business practices as well. So thanks again for having me.
Wow. And next, Wahid.
First of all, thank you for having me. I think it's I was just discussing with a friend. I think we always talk about what will happen in the future, but we never talk about how we will educate the future and how we will prepare them for the future that's coming. So it's an honor to be a part of this dialogue. My name is Wahid. I'm originally from Afghanistan. Um, I spent 6 years in Afghanistan. Then when I was 18, I came to China. I did my bachelor's in international economics, followed by an MBA, and I had the amazing opportunity to start numerous startups in Beijing. The first one was about the study in China. It was raising awareness about the overall education system in China and helping universities recruit the students and also provide them with overall comprehensive services once they come to China, including helping them find internship, jobs, and support them in their life in here. Followed by that, I started another company, which was also an education company called Yofu, and was focusing about cultural education and basically allowing the students to learn more about the world and try to communicate and try to help them equip with the necessary skills that will help them prepare for the future. Currently, I have 4 main projects going on. Number one, we have an incubator for international startups in Beijing. We help a lot of international businesses come and grow and land here. So just recently, like in the past 6 months, we have registered more than 16 startups in Beijing. We also manage one of the largest entrepreneurship competition called iTech, which invites a startup from all over the world and provide them with all the necessary support, including capital, policies, space, and other type of resources to have, I would say, a jump start for them in China. Because I studied in China, I studied in UIB, University of International Business Economics, and we had, I would say, one of the few alumni associations in all China. So I understand the importance of having a community of international students. That's why in 2021, in collaboration with Beijing Chaoyang government, we launched a nonprofit called Alumni Talent Alliance that is focusing on connecting students who graduate from Chinese universities and also connecting them with opportunities. And one big aspect of our mission with Alumni Association that we are building is also to upskill and help them connect with the industries better. I went a little bit too much, but I will probably discuss about these things later. Once again, glad to be here.
Sounds good. And like interestingly, like 2 years ago, I was involved in the iTech, and it's actually like good to hear that you can like open this opportunity to like the foreign students in China, and that could be like a truly boost for their entrepreneurship journey. And Dr. McCormick will give the like introduction later. He's doing the lectures. So last but not least, as for myself, I'm Tony, FWE's vice president and also a young leader. I'm still on entrepreneurship gap from my Harvard Business School MBA program, which I have been continuously extending for the past 3 years. And this is because in 2013, I actually founded Easy Transfer, a global fintech platform for international student payments. And today they processed more than $3 billion annually to thousands of universities around the world and at education institutions. And I'm so honored to be here today because the FWE Young Leader program brings together such an amazing group of aspirational young talents. And now, so we will get to our first speaker, Alex. And Alex, I have like 3 questions for you. So first, yeah, like you have studied and graduated from 2 different continents actually, and I'm sure you have a lot of opportunity to travel around the world during your life as a student and now as a young professional. So how do you see the future of education now?
Well, it's kind of a mega questions. I appreciate it, Tony. So first, I will explain a little bit of. So when I study or when I work across different continents. So I was been studying abroad since I was in the middle school age. I've been grow up in the Australia. So I believe most of the parents, especially Chinese parents, they always encourage their children to study abroad. And with the goal of to say it's going to be time to broaden your horizons. It's the most commonly used phrase when you try to teach you something. So personally, I've traveled to over 20 countries, studying Australia, UK. I've lived in China and the US. One thing that stands out to me is every country has its own unique culture. And in order to truly understand it, you need to embrace it. By basically means you need to immerse in yourself in the local way of life and forming the connections with people. And I think that's it's kind of a very very valuable experiences for me. And living in multiple countries have made me highly adaptable, able to quickly adjust to new environments, which I think is a great spirit for all of the young leaders. This experience have opened up countless opportunities for me and have served as a ladder, marking my personal growth along the way. So I think for all of the future young leaders, it's definitely going to be a good experience if you allow it to travel across the countries, learn of the different kind of culture differences, and to admire it. By what I mean to be really immersing into it, I'm not simply referring to that you are just living in a different continent, study there, hanging out still with your friends. I mean, is to kind to take up some new friends from the local people to join some kind of positions, like even for the customer service experiences, I've been able to allow it to trade with all kinds of people from all walks of life. That all equipped me with a great foundation of how you can communicate with different people, how you can join their conversation and quickly make up as friends.
That's like sounds great, amazing, and like I feel like a lot of like a resonance since like I actually like went to the States when I was 15 years old, and for like learn to adapt, it's truly important for like international students, and
exactly.
yeah. So like, can you share like some positives and the points of improvement for education experience that you went through, or like maybe if you were to do it all over again, or maybe like if it's come to your future child, what would be your ideal model of education?
Okay, so I will add up a little bit as my working experiences in here as well. So in my current role, I'm partly serving as the Associate Strategic Investment Department, and I'm also the Executive Assistant. I kind of oversee the entire partnership programs with all of the universities. So as I've been the point of contact for Cass Global School with the partner university, I've had the opportunity to speak with numerous student recruitment teams from top-ranking institutions. And surprisingly, we often reach in consensus of what type of students that they're desiring to recruit. While there's a kind of stereotype that some students being academically strong, but they're struggle to get into top university or even secure the jobs in the international labor markets. The recruitment teams and HR professionals have told me that while they are seeking talented students, by talented, I mean they do really great in your academic performance, they also prioritize well-rounded individuals with interests, leadership abilities, and teamwork skills. And all of that can be summarized into soft skills. And reflecting on my career coaching experiences with over 500 students, many of them have just expressed a lack of hobbies, or they have no directions outside of studying. And that highlights a broader issue is, from my point of perspective, education should not be solely focused on the academic performance, but also on developing those softer skills. So if you ask me how I'm going to cultivate my children, is that I will not put 100% pressure on his academic performance, but in the meantime, I'm going to allow him to explore his own hobbies. Like I have mentioned before, I used to be grown up by a professional athlete, and I love aviation industry. Being studied in the US or being living in the US have given me the opportunity to get my entertainment pilot license and give me lots of things that I can talk to people. So when I speak to all of those HRs in the top ranking university, I mentioned about those kind of my personal experiences, and it's all showing like a wow kind of atmosphere to them. So that's the thing I think really is you need to learn how to be a real person with the real interest, but not just to restrict yourself with the academic performance. And another thing is the future of the education. You also need to learn how to working with people, you need to know how to handle with the pressure, how to do organizing things well, and all of that will not be learned from the textbooks. All of that will be learned from your real life experiences.
That's a very good point for soft skills, and we've been like training ourselves through the K-12 like systems, education systems, higher ed systems in China, like for me personally, and
exactly.
the best part I encountered in the higher ed, like in high school, in boarding school, is about the part for like soft skills, and that's a truly great point. And so finally, can you give us some words of wisdom for the students who are currently in the university?
Well, I would say so is because I'm personally a Virgo, although I'm not really kind of into this, but I believe organizing things ahead is always a very important skill you need to have. For example, even if you are a freshman just joined the university, you need to have a clear vision on what kind of position you're going to apply in the next coming 3 years. Because entering into the tertiary education doesn't mean that it's going to be the end of the tertiary education. It marks a brand new start for recruiting, for getting a job in the final stage, because the most important thing of the education is to get yourself hired. If you're going to walk into the atmosphere that you love, working in the same positions that you have found of, you have keen to work in this kind of industries. That's the most important stuff. In order to achieve that, you need to have a clear vision, even in your first year joining the college. Because I'm a finance person, of course, I study for financial economics. So everybody had heard of that. Internship is really kind of important on your career path. So learn how to connect with people from senior level, learn how to reach out to the elder students graduate from the same college to you, be prepared for the future interview with all of the challenges posed ahead you. That's going to be a very important lesson you have to learn. I know that time management could be sometimes tricky. When you join the university for first year or second, especially when you're studying Australia or UK, you typically only have 3-year bachelor time. So try to seize up with the time, try to catch up with the time, catch up with more people, and get yourself equipped with veteran stuff. Last but not the least, I want to say that when I applied for Oxford and London Business School, one of my friends now, I would say so, have told me that there are only 2 possible elements you can take out of 3. That is sleep, networking, and study well. Networking means work, right? And I always give up with the sleep. So just go with the work, go with the study, and you're going to be successful in one. Cheers.
That's amazing. And yeah, I still remember back to my school days. The part I regret most was I did not participate into enough networking with the students from all over the world. And after graduation, I eventually realized that there will be no more opportunity like the college time. You have the opportunity to talk to friends from everywhere, to make friends from all over the world, share insights. That's a unique time window for you to learn and to make new friends. So yeah. And I will not take much time from you. So I will open up the floor for questions. Any questions for Alex? I see one from
yeah,
Rich.
I see that as well.
Yeah,
because
so
you have studying and working in British education industries, you want to develop differential strategies. How do you see individual and personalized learning evolving to tailor student needs in the future? Okay. Right. So that's actually a very good question, to be honest. That's very deep questions. Well, I believe that personalized is actually quite important to your entire, whatever is going to be your applying for a new postgraduate studies or your future career paths. Being personalized, having your own unique kind of interest or your unique selling points is some of the trigger for you to get entered into the most top universities or the top hiring companies for the top companies. So in order to maintaining that kind of very fragile balance, I would say so is still rely on part of your time management skills. In the meantime, I'm not saying that you are performing bad academically, but in the meantime, I'm saying you need to have a clear time schedule of how you distribute your time. For me, in my sophomore year, because I graduated from Australia, it's been 3-year bachelor programs. For the second year, in order to pursue my sole interest as being the pilot, I literally give up my sleeping time. I only be about to sleep for 4 hours a day. I believe that's crazy for 3 or 4 months because I have to study in the morning, attend some online lectures because of COVID, and then go back to study some of the interest stuff at night. So I think the most important thing is that you need to be powerful enough to control your own. If you're really interested in some certain field, then go dive in. Then it's going to be a very good experience that you can share with people and demonstrate as an example of how you personalize your study journey and use that as a selling point to attract of the more talented people and to go upper and upper.
Wow, that's truly like inspiration for us. And thank you so much, Alex. And now let's ask our second speaker, Danny.
Thank you.
Danny, like giving you background in building university accelerators, how do you see the role of higher education evolving in preparing students for the future work, especially in the tech sectors?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And just to kind of build on what Alex was saying, I've had a tremendous experience also living abroad outside of the United States, primarily in doing my undergrad in Canada, living in South America, and then in Europe, working in Southeast Asia. And that lived experience, I think, has been really, really beneficial for the work that I've done in building accelerators and for the people that I work with. And so what has been really interesting is that university, especially in the United States, is a magnet for attracting international intelligence. What I've criticized in the United States is that post-secondary education usually comes with a really high price tag, which is unfortunate because it really doesn't base it on meritocracy as much as it does on payments. I've seen a lot of countries actually support their citizens by providing scholarships to attend these universities. So I've been really humbled by countries that put a focus on investing in the next generation. However, I have seen a disadvantage when it comes to many American students that want to be entrepreneurial, but still have the financial stress and burden of potential debt weighing on them, which I think makes a very big difference in how they view the future of work. During the first conference in Paris, I was working for university accelerators. I also have a background in teaching English as a second language. And in the United States, it was financially impossible for me to see a future working as just a teacher. And so I was highly critical of the American system for not providing enough investment to make teaching look attractive. I see the same problem now where I'm working with so many incredible undergraduate and graduate students that want to build ed tech companies or companies that are really trying to use AI for good. But when they look at this capitalistic landscape that says you need to scale at all costs, you need to make as much money as possible in the shortest period of time so that you can have the highest return for investors' investments, they tend to put aside all of the educational pedagogies they've learned. They tend to put aside all of their lived experiences, all of that personal development, that Alex was talking about, that I've experienced myself through networking, through learning from cross-cultural experiences. And so I think we have both an opportunity, but we have to also acknowledge the current state of the landscape. And so I believe that higher education, as much as they can invest in their students now through financial means, also through self-care means. So when I talk about the cost, it saddened me to hear that Alex was only sleeping 4 hours a night at one point. And unfortunately, that was both my experience in undergrad, graduate, and in my professional life, until I reached a point where I knew that that was not sustainable for me to continue living. I think COVID was a really big wake-up call for me because I was a self-professed workaholic, and realized that if I was not healthy myself, that I was putting both myself, my family, and my company and the companies I work for in danger, and actual physical and health danger. And so an element of my consulting that I integrate now is an element of self-care, which I think that many people might scoff at or might not see as an intentional pillar, but it's something that I've integrated from COVID to really teach both students, universities and tech companies that if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not getting the rest that we need, we're not actually giving ourselves the best way to come up with these creative ideas. And I've seen this in action when I've worked with teams that have been given the permission or take the initiative to rest. Brainstorming, innovation, it comes so organically versus when you're on really tight deadlines and you're on very little sleep and the stress is high, you can get something done, but it usually comes at a cost. And then usually either companies or higher institutions have to play defense later on because they're like, oh, we didn't think of X problem, which arises. And so I'm always trying to build restorative solutions with the clients that I work with. And so I think universities have an opportunity to instill this in both their students and in the working world so that the future of work accommodates both rest and innovation at the same time, instead of us making the decision between one or the other.
That's a valid point, and I still remember like I was involved in the Blackstone Launchpad in my undergrad for school, and the selection like progress is truly like tough. But the thing is, like eventually only 10 students like get the opportunity. So everybody like work, until like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. every day, and catch up the like class work the next morning, like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. class. But the thing is, if you did not get enough like rest, then it's true that the idea the thoughts they don't come to you, like it's like stuck. So truly appreciate for your thoughts and giving this opportunity to the college students and let them realize that the right way for balancing the work and rest and get their like efficiencies up. So and also like your work focuses on creating more humane technologies. So can you share an example of how you've helped a company or entrepreneur incorporate this principle in their product or service?
Yeah, actually, we've leaned on learning from a lot of Chinese tech companies in this realm. I was working with some tech companies that were looking at how TikTok, for instance, was giving parental notices or making users stop to do like an educational lesson. And so some of the tech companies that I've worked with have actually used that as a indicator that the idea of being on maybe a social media app for hours on end is not the ultimate gain. And where I work at the intersections of digital health and ed tech. And so as much as investors and companies want to see month over month growth, they want to see really high retention from their users. What I've also shown is that in terms of preventative health measures, you might not always want to model those same metrics as you would a regular business. And so at one point I had a background in financial technology, just like you, Tony. And I found it very interesting that when I was working with digital health companies, they were usually pushing the same metrics. And I'd say, well, health, you can't measure it in the same way as you can finance. And so if you're looking at somebody that you want to be on this platform when their goal is really to get better, then you need to create a pipeline and a sales channel that actually rewards them for being on there as long as they need to, instead of forcing them to be on there, instead of building those relationships with families or those personal self-care things that I talked about. And so one company that I've been working with is actually been trying to attract self-care adverse individuals. And so everyone, I think, can get behind wanting to do fitness. It's a great way to get active, relieve some stress. But we've actually started to incorporate micro lessons of breathing, meditation, movement to actually calm the bodies down, so that even though you're using the app or you're engaging in the video in a fitness way, you're actually subconsciously learning how to meditate, how to calm your body down. And then at the end, we offer links and resources and additional follow-up workshops if you want to engage in those topics a little bit more. And so what we found is that students that are really anxious potentially about upcoming tests might not see the value of mental health, but when they do a video, a fitness video, and they learn how to breathe better and it actually starts working for them, we found that there's been a high click and impression rate on them clicking on those resources that actually point them to more self-care and preventative health measures. So that's just a few examples of what I've seen, but it's been a real pleasure to work at this intersection. There's also a lot of challenges because once companies grow to a certain height, I'd say in the United States, because healthcare is privatized, healthcare and investors don't always mix. And so I've worked with a lot of founders in the mental health care space that have come up with a lot of obstacles of seeing that once they grow exponentially, they might be forced to potentially cut some corners in order to grow even more. And that comes at the risk of the users. And so I'm always trying to advocate for those clinicians and those mental health practitioners and founders to still do what is fundamentally right for themselves so that they're not inflicting harm in the products that they're putting out in the world.
Wow, the program sounds amazing. And if there's like a new one, like please sign me up. And
yeah.
Definitely like look forward to participate.
I'll put it in the link. That's about one of the companies I'm talking about.
Beautiful. And giving you emphasis on building a sustainable economy, what role do you see education playing in preparing students to address global challenges like climate change, for example, and the social inequality?
I think education is everything. I have a background in international development and economics, but I decided to do my master's in education because I use it as my pedagogy for everything I do. I think that it is the greatest gift that we have as a society. Cross-cultural education, I think, is an even greater gift. And so it's been my mission to try and advocate for that. I find that even though we're at information overload with technologies, especially in the United States, there's been a bit of a backlash on people seeing the value of education. And so I think reinforcing not only the academic merits that you get from having an education, but both Tony and Alex, you talked about the individual merits of wanting to spend more time networking or just the relationships you made. I think that's so valuable for us to build more compassion in each other, and then also to learn from everyone's individual experiences. In the context of climate change, when I'm in a room with people from other countries, I get to hear about the climate change that they're personally experiencing. And I think all of those minds coming together can create the best solutions, rather than me being in a room of people that live in my community, because we're probably thinking in a closed box scenario. So I'm always going to push for education. I think it is the only way that we can really truly innovate and solve these problems.
That's truly amazing. And some audience just like private message me, like want me to open up the floor for question now. So yeah, like I will do that. Like please, like anyone like having any questions.
Great. Okay, I'm going to read it out loud. I really resonated with your story. I love your emphasis on self-care. You mentioned a lot of approaches regarding cross-cultural educational pedagogies. How do you envision these approaches shaping the future of global education? Ooh, that is such a good one because it's a tough one to answer. I believe that there was a lot of momentum regarding cross-cultural experiences and this idea that like, even though the world is so vast and big, technology has a lot of power to bring us together. I saw a little bit of that being stifled during COVID just because it was a global pandemic in which we were all suffering or coping in different ways. And so I think that the way that we can kind of approach shaping the future of education is taking a moment to really reflect on what these past 4 years have been, and then using that context to really shape the future of how we want to envision education. And so that means both looking at the pedagogies we've learned in school, the professional experience we've had, and then pairing that with our lived experience so that we can really create scalable and sustainable solutions instead of solutions that kind of go back to business as normal, which I just don't think we can do anymore.
Wow, wow. And thank you so much for your insightful experience, Danny. And yeah, so like next, I would like to yield the stage to Dr. McCormick for a very special guest presentation for us today. So please, Dr. McCormick.
Hello, and I hope you can all hear me okay.
Yes.
Great. I'm going to try to share my screen, but I don't know that I'm able to. Hold on. Well, I have sent through to Margot the slides that I made, so perhaps she can present them if she's got access, but it looks like I don't have access to share.
I will in 1 second.
Perfect. There it is.
Okay, all good.
Thank you. If you could go to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. So a very brief introduction on me. I was an undergraduate at Oxford University where I did PPE. I got a first-class degree. I then did a master's and a PhD at Oxford, and I taught undergraduates. I ran the admissions process at Oxford University for 6 Oxford colleges in PPE, economics and management, and modern history and politics courses. I did that for 4 years, and for 6 years I was a teacher at Oxford University, lecturer, teaching undergraduates in a very broad range of subjects in the humanities. About 3 years ago, while I was running a school in Switzerland, I got a master's in education at Cambridge University, where I also got a first class on that degree. So I'm in a sort of unusual group of people who have a first class degree from both Oxford and Cambridge. After Oxford, I went to UBS and I worked in finance at UBS Investment Bank. And then I went to Macquarie, where I worked in private equity. We bought and sold lots of interesting businesses like care homes, but also schools. While I was at Macquarie, I earned enough money that I could do what I really loved, which was teaching. I'd loved teaching at university. And so I left finance and I went back into teaching. I taught at Harrow School, where I taught about 7 different subjects in the humanities and arts. And then I was an assistant housemaster. I went to Sevenoaks, where I was responsible for the International Baccalaureate program. And where in my second year, there we had the best results worldwide for our student body. We got 100% A*A equivalent. And when the pandemic began, I moved to Switzerland and I started a school in Verbier, the Swiss ski resort, where in our 3 years of exam results, before I sold the school, we once again got 100% A*A. I joined Cats Cambridge this autumn as the head teacher. So that's me. If we could go to the next slide, it would be great. Thank you, Margot. So I got asked today to join a webinar about the future for education. What future for education? I take this quite literally. I'm going to talk about the purpose of education. When I think of the future, I really think of technology and what the key skills of the future will be. And the job of an educator is to look 50 to 100 years into the future and to give young people through education, the skills and the equipment they will need for that future. So thinking about the students at CATS Cambridge at the moment, I am back solving from the year 2080 and trying to make sure that the things that are taught at the school now will enable the students who will still be alive in 2080 and still working, still involving themselves in society with others, doing things themselves, have relevant skills that they learned while they were at CATS Cambridge. Great to go to the next slide, please. So in thinking about the purpose of education, really it's to take a child from the family and help them become an adult in society. Society can mean very different things in different places. In the UK, it means one particular form of society. We have for about 100 years had democracy, and that leads to certain ways of thinking and certain values. Other societies have different forms of organization, and that both reflects and is reflected in a different set of values in social life. So education, I think the first thing really to say is it prepares individuals for social life, but social life can mean very different things in different places, and that's okay. And so the education we want, or we should pursue, or look to equip ourselves with, should equip us for life in the society in which we want to live or in which we have to live. So an education in a tribe, native tribe in the Amazon rainforest would be pretty useless if it taught you a load of coding and didn't teach you much hunting, gathering, or survival skills. And likewise, I think learning survival skills, if you live and plan to stay in Manhattan in New York City, survival skills not very relevant there, but technological skills, finance skills, human interaction skills in a modern Western society would be much more relevant. So when you think about what education you want, try to think backwards from the kinds of things that you expect to want to do and expect to enjoy doing. My take on this has been that I want to be involved in education. I'm a teacher. I love to be a teacher. And I left finance with the view that I could do something I loved, being a teacher, and that if I did something I loved, I would end up doing it brilliantly because I'd spend lots of time doing it painlessly because I loved it. And if I did something brilliantly, I could charge a lot of money for doing it. And so I'd make money. I've turned out to be correct. But the main reason to do it is because I love it and I am happy to go to work every day, and it doesn't really feel like work. It feels like cheating because I'm being paid to do something I love. And I think that's the right way round to think about it. So when you think about your education and your choices within education, as you begin to specialize at this important age between the ages of 14 and 24, aim to do something you love and err on the side, lean towards doing something you love, because whatever you do, you will end up being able to make money from it. And you will end up being happier if you're doing something you love. And I think we've just heard some compelling arguments for being happy and different ways that being happy can happen. Next slide. Thank you. So I put some provocative images here. Can anyone name the bottom right-hand image? Anyone know what that is?
It's Picasso.
Yes, excellent. Do you know which Picasso? Do you know the name of it? Oh, you've said Guernica. Perfect. Does anyone know what this painting is really about? What it represents? Go on. I like war. Yes, the Spanish Civil War. It's about a clash between two different things. Can you guess what the things are? There are some clues in the picture. No guess is a bad guess. But humanity and technology. Royalties and rebels. Yeah, it could be forms of authority. Okay, so in this picture, we've got a light bulb at the very top. which has a sort of fierce flame, and it looks like an eye. And that light bulb for Picasso represents technology, modern technology. Now we're talking about the mid-1930s. And the story behind the picture is that a small town called Guernica was bombed by fascist fighter jets or fighter planes with modern bombs during a war in Spain that was between the royal family and rebels, between communists and fascists. And so the technology there represents modernity and modern advances in technology. And the little candle that's just below right of it, above the horse's head, that's coming through the door, represents Christianity or religious faith and an old-fashioned way of doing things, old sets of values. And so here Picasso's drawing the clash between modern technology and traditions and traditional religious ways of thinking and being in a community. And he's saying that the candle of the world, which is Jesus Christ in Christian theology, has been overshadowed, and quite literally there's a shadow across the arm, overshadowed and dominated by an artificial light bulb that represents the fighter jets. And you can see that the animals and the people and the old-fashioned sword on the ground, they've all been shattered, and a lot of pain is being caused. There's flames happening as a result of the exposure to this light. So this is Picasso's very creative, brilliant, wonderful take on the impact of technology on humans. So when we think about the future of education, we need to remember that it will do really two things. The first, in my view, is that all repetitive tasks, all things that you have to do that don't really require the best part of your brain, they will soon, within your lifetime, be gone forever. And that's quite amazing, because for 200,000 years, humans or beings like humans have had to do those tasks in order to survive. And in the space of 1 century, 100 years, we will go from having to do those things in order to survive to never having to do those things ever again. That's amazing. So we will go from everyone on the planet having to do lots of repetitive tasks to no one on the planet having to do repetitive tasks. And in terms of the scale of achievement, I think, a lot of people will see that as frightening, and it is. But as a human achievement, it's immense. It's an enormous achievement. It will have all sorts of repercussions. And the second interesting thing is that because of all of those repetitive tasks disappearing, our collective minds, all of our individual minds and all of the minds in humanity will be free. They will be freer. They will not have to do those repetitive tasks. You won't have to remember your shopping or tidying or to-do lists. They will all not just happen like telling Siri or Alexa to do them for you. They will happen automatically, because those artificial intelligences will preempt and guess and work out what needs to be done that is repetitive before you even remember. And that will leave space in your mind free to do very creative things. And that's the picture of the sort of top of the human head there in the middle of the page. I've put on the right-hand side 2 different possible impacts. One is that we have a lot more time to do very artistic things, very abstract things that humans are very good at and that machines are much less good at, like Picasso painting pictures, something that many humans, if they have the time, are very, very good at, and that machines will be very slow, if ever, to catch up with us. And on the other hand, if we get this wrong and we hand power to machines, we could end up with very dystopian society where creativity is not expressed. And that's the example of Skynet and the Terminator. When I think about the impact here, there's a global impact. Big unemployment will occur in the short to medium run. Welfare states will come under massive pressure as a result. Manufacturing economies, especially in less developed countries, will come under massive pressure because of the automation of these tasks. Manufacturing will move back to places where machines are created and where artificial intelligence is developed. So we could see a manufacturing rehoused into the USA and taken back away from major manufacturing hubs, particularly in South America and Pacific Basin. There'll be an impact on international relations as a consequence of this, a rebalancing of global power, and there will be defense or war implications, which is why I put Skynet there, so that, you know, not just among humans, but between humans and artificial intelligent threats. And then there's an impact on the individual. LDC is a less developed country, less economically developed country. There'll be impact on the individual, where the focus will change from having to do repetitive tasks, daily chores, to being able to spend a lot more time being creative and solving problems, which humans are really good at relative to machines. If we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I think one really interesting thing, particularly talking to this group, is in thinking about LDCs is less economically developed countries. If you Google it, you should find a Wikipedia article, LDC or LEDC. So when I think about key skills of the future, global citizens are what you will be more than anyone before. When we think about personal transport over the last 60 or 70 years, 70 years ago, nobody really took any flights anywhere. Flights were for military and commercial transport. But over the last 70 years, flights became available to everyone. And if you go to flightradar.com, you will see the sheer number of planes in the sky everywhere in the world at once. It's stunning. It's amazing to watch, actually. I'd encourage you to visit Flight Radar for that reason. But that number is going to increase exponentially as personalized travel with drones and other personalized aircraft starts to really take hold. So people are talking about cars becoming self-piloted, but not far away from that, planes will become self-piloted, and we'll be able to catch a drone flight in our own personal drone or in an Uber drone from London to Beijing and watch videos or work or sightsee on the way. And I would be surprised if that takes that many decades to happen. That will make individuals extremely mobile in a way that even now is incomprehensible. And you will be able to move between communities, between countries, and between continents with great ease. It will be quite difficult for other humans to track you. It will be easy for machines to track you, and that will lead to some major privacy problems globally. What skills will you need if you're able to hop into a drone and travel anywhere in the world? Well, you'll need communication and language skills. I don't think those are going anywhere. I think the real-time translation of languages will get better, but the ability to express yourself in any particular language will remain and increase in importance. You'll need problem-solving skills, and that will require you to study logic and mathematics. You will need big amounts of creativity, and those are cultivated, among other subjects, by the humanities, arts, and social sciences. And most especially, I believe, you'll need teamwork skills, leadership, and diplomacy. And I think co-curriculars, sport, music, drama, clubs, societies, going on trips and visits, these are the best ways to develop those skills. And then underlying all of that is a mindset, is a really robust, strong mindset that can make you courageous in the face of such rapid change. I think these things are not things that we need to be afraid of. I think they're very exciting changes, and we can choose to see them as positive. I think that's the last slide, Margot, if you could confirm, and then I've got just Q&A.
Beautiful, and that is indeed so inspiring to hear. And thank you so much for sharing, Dr. McCormick. And yeah, because of the time, we only will open the floor for one question. So anyone cherish this opportunity.
Very happy to take questions in the chat box if you feel a bit shy. And no need for questions if, thank you. No need for questions if you don't have any. That's fine with me.
Hello, Hugh. Hi. Great to meet you. Can you hear
Hello,
me?
John.
Hello, Hugh. Have one question. So you're talking about a future where the AI is gonna play a dominant part of our lives. How do you like? Is it gonna be in the near future? When do you envision that it's going to be changing our lives?
Thank you. So I chose a picture there in the presentation from Halo, the video game, where the main character is a sort of humanoid who's part robot in his body, and he has an avatar. He has an AI assistant who sort of lives in his helmet. I think that will happen quite quickly. So I think it won't be long. I would say within 5 years, and some of the major software companies will have created, Bing or ChatGPT will move from being a single Google-like search feature to being a personalized avatar that you use to do your own tasks and that you can personalize for your own private information that
So
isn't
it's gonna be
shared.
Jarvis in the Iron Man.
Sorry?
There's gonna be like Jarvis in the Iron Man, your
Yeah.
personal assistant.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that will happen, and I think that will be very exciting for education because you can, what I suspect those companies will do is charge for bolt-ons where if you're doing, I don't know, if you want to study maths at university, you can sort of upgrade your maths package and get and sort of upgrade your avatar to get them really good at teaching maths. So I think that I would guess that that's the way it will go, and you'll imagine I don't know, like World of Warcraft character who you've got all the best sets of armor for or something. It'll be like that, but where it's much more holistic across your whole life. So you might buy if you're going on holiday to Brazil, you might buy a sort of Brazil travel bolt-on package, and you'll have a head-up display that your phone can produce, and your avatar will appear on that display and will guide you around Rio de Janeiro and make sure that the relevant places that you want to see are in part of the personally curated tour. Likewise, you might be revising for your A-level exams, and it's helping you, coaching you with past exam papers and throwing up instructional videos into your heads-up display or giving you feedback on problem sets that you repeatedly make mistakes on.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's actually like inspiring. Like if you like, it's not always the hardest if you have like a solution for the issues, but if you like look, like not everyone can look into the next 5 years or like 10 years, what's gonna happen, and like looking back from that point and thinking about how this society gonna change. That could be like truly like inspiration for everyone, like for especially like for the university students. And thank you so much for the insightful thoughts, and we truly appreciate.
Thank you. You may need to end now. If I'm happy to take one more question if there is one.
We probably we will like send you questions like afterwards.
That's fine.
But
Okay.
yeah, we still have like one more guest. And
thank you, Tony. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you
everyone.
so much, Dr. McCorney. Thank you. And finally, I would like to save some time, like for the knowledge that Wahid has to share with us. So Wahid, I know like you work with the Alumni Talent Alliance, is the largest NPO for international students, focuses on entrepreneurship guidance. So my question is, how important do you think entrepreneurial skills are in today's educational landscape?
Well, first of all, I think Mr. Hugh made such a beautiful, vivid painting of the future, and give us a vision of how the future will be. Probably one of the futures might awaits us. And I think like there's a pathway for us to get there. And the pathway to get there is a different approach toward education. For the past few years, all of our education focused much more on discipline, on gathering knowledge, on being extremely capable managers in a lot of aspects. when it comes to that. So for us, what we are trying to figure out is like maybe there's a different approach to education. Maybe there's an approach of education that the purpose of it is focusing on solving problems, on understanding and observing society in a different way, on creating frameworks that make things much more simpler and easier, on coming up with projects that has very specific goals and very specific deliverables that is very beneficial to all the stakeholders involved. And when we start thinking about that kind of approach, then the only thing that we land on is entrepreneurship. So that's why we focus a lot on how we can create not only an entrepreneurship mindset and equip them with the skills, the tools, and also provide them like the guidance necessary, the mentorship necessary, try to put them in these situations where they gain these skills, and also provide funding and all of it. But also it's about how to build a culture of entrepreneurship that is extremely necessary. What Dr. Hugh mentioned, I think like whether we will have access to all those technologies is whether how we will susceptible to those ticks. And that is a big part of it is the culture. So what we are trying to do, number one, is when we look at entrepreneurship among international students in Beijing, we want to focus first on the culture of entrepreneurship. The second thing that we want to focus about is how to raise awareness, how we can help students have I would say a first principle problem solving approach to what their future, and do not think about career guidance. So I will just like study very hard and get a job, but try to look at things a different way, especially as Dr. Hugh mentioned, but in the future that we will no longer be doing repetitive, boring tasks again and again. And then here, what we focus much more is about the critical skills of like these talents. So that's one of the things that we want to focus on. The second thing is like what we are trying to focus on is how we can work with universities to restructure the way that we get them involved in the ecosystem. Like universities in China no longer is just a place where you go get the knowledge and connect with your peers, but it's also trying to align very much with industry development. So they want to play an integral role in how industries are developed, whether it's in part of research or trying to cultivate or train the next generation of like workforce for them too. So that's the second part of the things that we want to focus on, is how we can align industries with universities and try focus on the skills that universities need and the industries need and universities should equip talents with. And then the last one is trying to come up with pathways that help them become successful. And so these are the things, and I think that's all of these things are extremely crucial. And coming back to your question, I think like in future, there only will be one education, and that will be the education of entrepreneurship, because we will have a lot of free time. We will have a lot of, I would say, ideas to make it happen. We will have the tools. We will have AI that makes it much more easier for people to acquire knowledge and try to test things by themselves. So I think that's the pathway forward. That's how it's going to be, even not in such a distant future. I think even currently we live in a very project-based economy. So everything is built in that way. The business model works that way. So I think it's a very big part of what is happening in the society right now, and definitely going to be one of the biggest part of what will happen in the future. So that's what we are also right now working with different government. Just recently, we launched a community for PhDs and researchers, because no longer we want researchers to only focus on different topics and gather data and build models, but also how they can have a practical approach to their research and apply it into different settings. So that's why we created a community for PhDs in Beijing, and we focus much more on helping them start businesses and to transfer their technology from a research-based to application-based. And then we are also talking with other local governments, and hopefully we once we are able to create a very good framework, we can also go and do in a kind of like try to copy and also make it localized for different countries. So over there, we can also empower the young generation to be able to have have the tools and the skills that they can solve the problems that they care about.
Well, like I do have like a follow-up question on that part. So like as someone who have created educational startups, what gaps do you see in current global education system that like entrepreneurs could address?
I think there's definitely like there's a skill gap, but there's also an awareness gap. Like for example, just AI itself, like one of the biggest things that I'm worried about is AI is going to create even a wider gap between developed countries and underdeveloped countries in the way that people have access to information. And then I think AI right now, even like this earlier version of ChatGPT and whatever we have access to, it's a very good productivity boost. But eventually these productivity boosts will cost very much. Like $20 a month right now is a very cheap for a lot of us. But when you look at it, $20 for, let's say, for a young kid in Pakistan or in India, that's a big chunk of their monthly income. So they right now already doesn't have the leverage. So I think one of the things that entrepreneurs can address when it comes to education and skills in other countries is try to make things much more cheaper, try to make these tools more accessible, and try to help people have more access to information that is very useful for them to become more independent, I would say. And those things will help people learn how to learn. Once people learn how to learn, they are able to come up with find the skills that they care about and then think about what they want to do with their life.
Wow. And because of the time, I have one question, one last question for you, Wahid. And I know your work touches a lot on social entrepreneurship. So how can education system foster an entrepreneur mindset in students to prepare them for future challenge? Or in other words, do you think it's necessary for students to develop such mindset?
Definitely. I think I would not even think of it as an entrepreneurship mindset. I think it will be just I would say, a very proactive problem solver and responsible and somebody who wants to contribute to society kind of mindset. Entrepreneurship is right now probably the only word that we use, but I think we should come up with a better word for it. It's absolutely necessary. How we could actually do it, I think the responsibility goes back on teachers. I think we need first, in order for us to teach the students, we have to teach the teachers, and we have to allow teachers to also understand what the future expects from the young generation and what they should be able to deliver to these young people. For example, right now, a lot of the times when I talk to teachers, even I think they lack a lot of real life experiences, and they have been almost in a way factory trained kind of teachers. They go and they get the degrees and then they join the schools and they become teachers and they just follow the same curriculums and the same study plans. And I don't think we need that in future. And I think AI might help a lot with that it can be much more customized and it provide much more tailored education to different people. So I think that might help a lot. But for I would say, in the near future, I think we have to do a lot of retraining, reskilling, upskilling of our teacher first before we go and educate the youngs.
Nice. And thank you for sharing those unique and valuable experience, Wahid. And now the time is almost up, but we'll definitely to entertain some questions from our audience today. So anybody having questions for Wahid?
Sure. Before somebody asks a question, I would say it's an honor once again. It was very fun to learn about different aspects and different perspective on what future will be in what kind of education we will have in the future.
Amazing. Sounds good. And
I have a question for Wahid.
Sure.
How do you define entrepreneurship with regards of how you were looking at education? I thought it was really powerful how you mentioned the future of education will be a focus on entrepreneurship. And so I'm curious how your definition of entrepreneurship has maybe evolved.
I actually just mentioned, I think entrepreneurship probably won't be the right word using going forward. I think it's much more, number one, thinking about the problems that concerns you and the problem that concerns a larger group of audience. I think at core of it, entrepreneurship is problem solving, making things much more simpler, making things better, providing unique value, not only for yourself, for people around you. So there's, I would say, a social responsibility aspect to it. Number two, I think it's a journey of self-discovery. So that's also self-empowering, that is self-realization, self-actualization aspect to it too. And then the other aspect that I will probably think about is creativity. Is once we have a lot of problems, what is the most effective way? What is the most sustainable way to solve it? So I think at the core of it is problem solving, but it could be a little bit more, and it's just the journey of how we find what we care about. And other ways, like I tell people, like entrepreneurship can be something like what you want to do, what you can do, and what you should do, all three combined together. And it's like finding that purpose. So how we are able to cultivate that mindset and that culture among youth, I think that's the kind of education that we need to have.
Wow, thank you for the question, Danny, and amazing panel, everybody, and so like today was such a amazing roundtable, and with so much insight and unique viewpoints and experience shared across the world. And I would like to thank our guest again for taking the time across different time zones to come together, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you, Dr. McCormick, Alex, Danny, and Wahid. And also a special guest to Margot for coordinating and bringing us all together here. A big thank you to our audience.
Sorry,
well.
1 second. I saw a question on the from Akram. Can you see on in the chat?
Yes. Cool.
Is that question?
Yeah, Wahid, please. That's probably
okay.
a question for you.
All right. I think cross-cultural background, it just, I would say you look at things much more differently because you have a lot of point of reference when you come and think about the things. I think I would just put it this way. I realized that we have a lot of things in common. For example, me being an Afghan and born and raised in in another country and raised in another country and been to different countries. Number one is it made me realize that we have a lot of things in common. It made me realize that we care about the same things. It made me realize that we really are bad at communication. We don't know how to communicate with each other. We don't know how to understand each other. And it also made me realize that as long as you do create something value, you realize that everybody comes together and supports you. So the cross-cultural background, I think it makes you empathize with people much more. It makes you understand that all of us care about the same thing. And then it also makes you realize where the true values are positioned. And I think it also very helps with your personal positioning, because if you start up a business, if you create a business, it's much more about what is your positioning, whether it's within a market or something. And then as a cross-cultural, you realize people like us, our role is to be ambassadors, our role is to be bridges, and our role is to try to connect different ecosystems together. So I think that basically, if I have to just answer it, it made me realize that there's a lot of gaps and we need to fill those gaps. And once again, thank you, Margot, and thank you, Tony, for making this happen. Amazing panel. But I know we are running out of time, so I will not go further with this.
But truly appreciate your feedback, Wahid, and also a big thank you to our audience as well for tonight. And I hope that our webinar today continues to inspire sparks, new sparks in education. And thank you all. So please continue to follow the Forum for World Education on social media for our online and in-person event. And see you next time.